So the genesis for this book actually began with my wife. My wife is a nurse practitioner, and in around 2018, she was working at a community health center in Atlanta, where we had recently moved from New York to Atlanta. And she was noticing this trend among the patients she was seeing. These patients were one after another. They were, working at Amazon warehouses, packing boxes, or they were working at McDonald's or Walmart, or they were driving for Uber and Lyft or DoorDash, or they were caregivers. They were home health aides or daycare workers. And when they finished their shifts, they told my wife they were, going not to an apartment, but to shelters, or if shelters existed, if there were shelter beds available, or they were staying in the overcrowded apartments of others. They were going to these squalid extended stay hotels and motels, and hopefully we can kind of unpack the phenomenon of extended stay hotels because it's a really important site in this book. And, or they were even sleeping in the very cars they had just done airport runs for Uber and Lyft in. They were sleeping in those cars at night. And when my wife told me about this, I was stunned. I had read books about homelessness just as a journalist, and before that, as an anthropologist. I've been sort of interested in issues of poverty and inequality, and I didn't remember in all of the reading I had done about homelessness ever encountering a sort of explicit discussion of the relationship between employment and homelessness. And indeed, when I went to an academic search engine around that time and I typed in working homeless, I expected to just discover this plethora of articles, and there was hardly anything. Of course, like in the margins of articles and books, there was a discussion in a classic book called Down and Out in America by Peter Rossi. He actually has this formulation that those in the world of homelessness are sort of, I think as he put it, cut off from the world of work. So when it was mentioned, it was in a negative way, that people who are experiencing homelessness actually aren't part of the labor force, and that a job is an exit from this most severe form of deprivation. So I was really stunned when I encountered, this trend through my wife, and that led me to write a story for the New Republic following a working family in Atlanta who, by the time I met them, had been homeless for about 4 months after being pushed out of the kind of rapidly gentrifying, formerly predominantly Black working class neighborhood they had been renting in. And by the time I met them, they had been homeless for about 4 months. And I followed them for several months for that story. And when I was finished reporting it, I just realized I had only scratched the surface of this phenomenon. And I just wondered, like, is this pervasive? Is this unique to Atlanta? I began reporting in other areas of the country, in Northern California. And suffice it to say, I realized that no, it is not unique to Atlanta, that Atlanta, the trends that are happening in that city are really just representative of what's happening in any number of other cities around the country. And maybe we can talk a little bit about some of those dynamics that are creating this growing precarity.